guys, Kim here from CustomDollBaby.com. It's Saturday and I hope that you're all ramping up for a fun and relaxing weekend. I am working. So today I am doing some rooting. I thought this would be a fun opportunity to show you how I root as well as to show off my new toy. So as you know, whenever I go to an arts and crafts store, I always wander the aisles to see if there's something there that might be useful for reborning. And it's always a good idea to stop by the felting section, it's in the needle crafts department, to see what they have available for felters. And what I found is this lovely case for the rooting needles. As you know, the needles that we use for rooting are very similar to the ones that are used for felting, so there's a lot of crossover opportunities. So what I like about this thing is if you've seen my rooting ergonomics video, you know that it's very important to maintain a loose grip on the needles while you're rooting. And this really makes it so easy to do that because it's nice and fat. It's got this ergonomically curved handle to it. This is actually a rubber grip, so I can hold the needle very loosely and still maintain a lot of control over it. So that's wonderful. It's very easy to load. You just screw this piece out and insert your uncut rooting needle. And that's great because uncut needles are usually a lot cheaper than the cut needles, so this gives us an opportunity to save some money. The compartment that you're loading the needle into is also directionally aligned, so you can't stick the needle in there any way you want. It's going in a certain direction. You got a little bit of wiggle room, but not much. So it's aligning the needle for you, so that when you put it back in the case, the direction that you want to hold the needle is going to correspond to the logo being face up. So on rooting needles, you have 3 sides and 3 corners. If you looked at a cross section of a needle, it would be like a little triangle. And when you're rooting, you always want one of the corners facing down because that's where your barbs are. So this is a flat side that you're looking at right now. And you want a flat side facing you so that the corner is always facing down. And this thing is designed such that your corner is always facing down when the logo is facing up. So that's just very convenient as you're rooting and you tend to rotate as you go. This makes it easy to see which way you need to hold it. And of course, I also love that it has a case, so that I don't have to unload my needles every time I stop rooting. I can just leave it right in the device and it's not gonna kill me when I'm not looking. So that's all very good things. I ordered this one on Amazon, even though I discovered it in Michael's. It was a lot cheaper to get it online. I highly recommend it. It's called the Dimensions Needle Felting Needle Tool. I love it, highly recommend it. While I'm talking about dimensions stuff though, I want to show you something that is not as useful. So this is also one of their felting tools, and it actually holds like 5 or 6 needles all at the same time. And I thought this would be useful for when I'm doing collector's dolls, that I'd be able to root a lot at the same time. But even on a well-warmed head, the vinyl is so thick and it takes so much force to get all 5 of these needles, or all 6 or so needles, into the vinyl that you actually end up bending them as opposed to penetrating the vinyl. So this one is not as useful. So if you saw it and you were thinking about it, save your money and get this one instead. So today we're rooting human hair on a toddler doll. This is Cookie by Donna Rubert, and he's gonna have a ton of hair. I've got a sock here that's been filled with rice that I heated up in the microwave. This warms the head and makes the vinyl more elastic. The elasticity of the vinyl helps us to root. It makes it easier to push the needles in, and it is more likely to grab the hair when we pull the needle back out. In addition to the head, you're gonna need some hair that you're rooting. This is what we're putting on this toddler. This nice curly human hair blend. You're gonna need your needles, of course, a brush to help you keep the hair out of your way, some bows and clips, and also a flat iron. And the last thing you're gonna need is something to stabilize the head. That might be a rooting pillow. For me, it's a rooting bowl. using the shelf liner to grip it and keep it from sliding around, and a clean napkin to protect the painting. So what you can just barely see here is my rooting pattern, and excuse me, at some point in the future I'll do a video on how to draw the rooting pattern, but for now I'm just taking for granted that it's there. Okay, the first thing that I like to do, because the hair is curly, I like to use my flat iron actually to straighten it out, because it's going to be a lot easier to handle. I have a tendency to burn myself a lot with a flat iron, so please be very careful as you're handling it. And try to remember to turn it off when you're not using it. And you don't want to make too many passes on the hair, because this can cause damage. Same way it would if you flat iron your own hair too much. Okay, so that's good enough. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I just want it to be neat enough that I can hold it and all the hairs are going to be pointing in the same direction. So I'm going to root in the pattern that I drew. So I have hairs here that are going this way. Then they're going to run around the corner and start to go backwards. And that's a nice natural hair growth pattern. If you feel like you need more guidelines, which I do, you can go back with a piece of chalk and draw those in, especially in an area where I have to change direction. The guidelines are very helpful to help me make seamless transitions to the new direction instead of having these like really well-defined points of inflection where the hair is clearly going in a different way. I root single strands. Let me get my logo facing up so I know that I have the bottom of the needle facing the vinyl. I'm going to try to get situated so I'm not kicking the camera. And we're just going to start pushing in some hair. On your hairline, it's good to not make too straight of a line. So I have a hairline drawn here, so I'm going to try to very intentionally root above and below it so I don't have a perfectly straight line going across the front of the doll's face, because that's not going to look very natural. So I hope you can see how much we changed direction since we started. So we've got hairs in this area that are literally growing this way as compared to the hairs that we started with that are going this way. So we've made like a 90-degree rotation as we're rooting around this corner, which makes the hair look a lot more natural as we're following a growth pattern. Okay, so I just got the bowl out of the way so you can see a little better what we have here. So we just finished rooting the crown. So the hair will naturally fall in this nice spiral pattern. And it wasn't my intention to do a crown rooting tutorial today. That just happened to be where I'm at in this rooting, so I went ahead to show that. But in the future, I will be talking in more detail about how to draw out that crown pattern as well as how to root it. But at least now I can show you what it looks like. So as you can see, the hairs on the bottom of the swirl are going this way. We have some going to the left, some going straight up. So we've got kind of this pinwheel. And what really makes it look natural is if the pinwheel kind of crisscrosses itself. So that's a little hard to describe, but hopefully you can see it. And as I mentioned, in the future, we'll draw that out in more detail and look at some pictures so you can get a sense of how that works. So this is the section that we just rooted. We started here and went all the way there. So as you can see how our direction changed, and it lines up very nicely with what was already there. So the hairs around the hairline are going straight down. As you get further to the crown, they start to wrap around and pick up into that swirl. So that's why I was rooting this funny shaped pattern, because it gives me the opportunity to change the direction from going into the face to getting sucked up in the swirl. So we only have the top of the head now. I've still got the rest of the back of the head to root, which should go a little bit faster because the pattern's not as complicated. I still have to catch the swirl when I get to the crown, but at least around the neckline, and most of the back of the head is just going straight up. And one thing I also wanted to mention is after you root a section, it's very good to go back and check to make sure that that section actually rooted properly. I recently finished a Chanel doll where there were sections that would not root, and those sections became apparent when I looked inside the scalp and could see that there were bald spots. So for this guy, we've got one in the middle that I need to go address. But the section we just did over here on the side is looking really good. I've got maybe a 1/4 inch of hair inside the scalp that I'll be able to seal. And you can also see our little crown swirl, which is kind of fun. So that's our little guy. Got a lot more rooting to go, but thanks for joining me. Let me know if you have any questions. This was more of a demo than a tutorial, so hopefully it wasn't confusing. And yeah, thank you for joining. Please subscribe to my channel so you can see what this guy looks like when we're done. And I'll see you next time.